Few would argue against blocking pornography, hate, criminality. It's done in schools, libraries, and workplaces across Canada and around the world. A Canadian company, Netsweeper, has become an international leader, selling internet filtering software around the globe, blocking millions of users from reaching potentially offensive websites. But researchers at the University of Toronto say they've discovered Netsweeper being used to filter web traffic in 30 countries. And they say in at least 8 of them, the technology is censoring entire populations, millions of people, in violation of their basic human rights.
Canada is a country that's defined by its values. This is a Canadian company headquartered here. We should expect more of Canadian companies and the Canadian government, frankly.
In Yemen, for example, in the midst of civil war, Citizen Lab says the regime is using Netsweeper to block news and opposition websites. Gay or lesbian websites are blocked in Bahrain and UAE. And in Kuwait, they say, some pages of the World Health Organization are censored. And perhaps more surprising, Netsweeper's also big in India, the world's largest democracy. Journalists with the Indian Express worked with Citizen Lab to see exactly what was being censored.
Even sites of, say, human rights groups and NGOs are also blocked or have been blocked, along with some interesting Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts.
In a statement, Netsweeper said it is a world leader in internet safety and challenges the Citizen Lab conclusions. Netsweeper has always and remains fully compliant with Canadian law and in those countries where it has ongoing concerns. And it adds, Netsweeper cannot prevent an end user from manually overriding its software. But critics say if Canadian technology is being misused abroad, Ottawa should step in, like stopping combat helicopters destined for the Philippines or armored vehicles sold to Saudi Arabia.
You can see those, they're products, you can visualize the consequence. Censorship is unique, and censorship on the internet is particularly hard to get a hold of and actually see when you don't know what's being withheld from you.
Ottawa says it's concerned that Canadian-made software may be preventing free access to the internet abroad. Now, Global Affairs told us in a statement that it's in talks with its international partners on just how it might control this type of technology. Dave Seglin, CBC News, Toronto.
Arnal Ayed has also been working with Citizen Lab to examine the use of Netsweeper in countries with troubling human rights records, in particular its impact on the Arab Spring, when authoritarian governments in the Middle East were eager to crush dissent and silence activists.
If you've owned an iPhone in the past 2 years, then you owe something to the man they call the $1 Million Dissident. In 2016, someone tried to hack into human rights activist Ahmed Mansour's phone. He shared the suspicious text with Toronto-based Citizen Lab. The lab's diagnosis? Malware, estimated at more than $1 million, capable of turning an iPhone into a spying tool that can track everything that you do.
We did a responsible disclosure after that discovery that led to Apple issuing a security patch that affected more than 1 billion people worldwide.
Shortly afterwards, the man who protected your phone from hacking was thrown into prison. The quest to quiet blogger and activist Ahmed Mansour started in earnest with the upheaval of the so-called Arab Spring. Mansour was already becoming a trusted voice abroad on human rights, and at home sometimes the only voice defending them. He'd co-founded a bold online discussion forum that quickly found an audience. By 2010, says Citizen Lab, Canadian company Netsweeper had provided the technology to help one of the country's main internet providers sweep the web of unwanted content. Khalid Ibrahim is executive director of the Gulf Center for Human Rights.
The famous blogger, famous for his efforts to promote human rights, to promote freedom of expression and freedom of opinion.
In the affluent, Western-friendly but politically autocratic United Arab Emirates, the demand for change took the form of a petition. Mansour and dozens of other Emiratis signed to demand an elected parliament. The authorities moved swiftly to shut it all down. And it is here Mansour's gradual muzzling begins. His discussion forum blocked, according to Citizen Lab, with the help of Netsweeper filtering. And for Mansour, that changed everything.
I always wanted to see change. I believed a lot in equality, but I was not engaged in direct activities myself until the government decided to nail down the most critical discussion forum.
One morning, Mansour was arrested, manages to note it on his personal blog. In prison for 8 months, then convicted of threatening state security and insulting the country's leadership. He was pardoned, but the forum was dead. Gulf specialist Christopher Davidson wrote then the Emirates had lost its only credible online forum.
It's essentially removed that bit of breathing space, that bit of wiggle room, if you like, that citizens now really don't have. They either have to toe the authorities' line, come what may, or be an outright dissenter who risks being arrested. There's no middle ground anymore.
It seems there was no limit to the lengths authorities would go to try to muzzle human rights activist Ahmed Mansour.
Security authorities in the country started to campaign trying to tarnish me and fabricate videos and stories about me. I received several death threats from individuals who gave their phone numbers and their full names.
But he wouldn't budge. Others landed in prison, self-censored, or left. Mohammed al-Sakr is a former Emirati prosecutor who says he was forced to retire early for his views, and so he moved to London.
طبعا هم صاروا يسمعون صوت واحد فقط. ونحن نعرف ان التلفزيون مش للاسف التلفزيونات الوطنيه او حتى القنوات الوطنيه كلها تبث في اتجاه واحد، ففقد المجتمع فقد الصوت الاخر.
Online too, the drive to choke dissent picked up speed. Mansour was already on it, trying to document the clampdown. Then once again, it hit close to home. His personal blog also blocked. Again, according to Citizen Lab, with the help of Netsweeper's filtering technology. A third site connected to Mansour belongs to the Gulf Center for Human Rights. Mansour is on their board. What if I told you that your website is blocked in the UAE using Canadian technology?
I am unhappy about that kind of support, technical support to governments that are abusing human rights on a daily basis. This should be stopped immediately.
Ron Diebert and his team at Toronto's Citizen Lab have tracked Netsweeper for years in the UAE.
It's a country that has a long track record of human rights violations, so it's not surprising that they do that. What's surprising to me, and what is really, frankly, unacceptable, is that a Canadian company is effectively servicing that type of censorship.
Netsweeper disagrees with Citizen Lab's findings, says its technology is content neutral, that it can't prevent clients from manually overriding its software. Global Affairs says Canada is concerned by what it called allegations of misuse of Canadian technology. Al-Sakr, the former prosecutor, expects better.
الحكومات الديمقراطية في هذه الدول يعني لما تتعامل بهذه الطريقة وهي تعرف أنها يعني الأدوات هذه سوف تستخدم ضد الشعوب في هذا، فهي تساهم في تكميم أفواه الشعوب المضطهدة أيضا.
International rights groups say the Emirates, an ally of the West, has an ever-worsening record of violations. Amnesty International calls Mansour's record as a determined lone critic unimpeachable.
Ahmed Mansour, do you hear me? Yes, well, very
Yes,
welcome
I
to
can.
you.
Deserving of the 2015 Martin Annals Award, the Nobel Prize for Human Rights. It is through a video made by that foundation then that we've been able to hear Mansour's voice now.
Even removing one stone from this mountain is better than just keeping the mountain as is.
Mansour was banned from travel, so it was al-Sakr who accepted it. Last year, Mansour was arrested, authorities say, for publishing false information, damaging the country's reputation, spreading hatred and sectarianism. The $1 million dissident silencing was complete.
In the Gulf countries, you have many, many cases like what has happened to Ahmad Mansour in the UAE, people who speak out against the government or advocate for free speech or human rights can end up in prison. And that's why this is a really important case study, I think, to put to the test. Do we really care about these principles here in Canada?
As they have outside the UAE. Inside, others have taken up Mansour's cause, carefully and quietly. And there are new ways to access blocked content online. Mansour, however, is still behind bars. Nala Ayed, CBC News, London.